we've got a great show coming up for you today, have we not?
Always.
As always. We've got some great, we've got the news stories, we've got latest news, we've got the stories. We've got this woman that was saved from death by her dog, which is a great story. We've got this issue of yawns being contagious in dogs. See what I did then? Dogs. And there's another one about the old English sheepdogs. Apparently
I've got a fourth one then.
What's that?
And it's Halloween-esque as well, because the sniffer dog found 3 immigrants in France trying to smuggle into Britain, and they were in a coffin lorry.
That is quite appropriate, isn't it?
Talk about more of that later.
Later on, coming up. We're also going to talk about some stuff to do with travel. It's billed as a Halloween stroke travel special. So we've got some great tips for your travelling with your pets if you're going away over the forthcoming period. Then both myself and Jez have got some tips for you. We've got our normal Q&A, both with yourself and with Adrian, our head vet. So loads to look forward to, but first of all, it's probably just worth to have a quick thought for what's going on in New York. And there's been a lot of coverage about the terrible events of the storm that's going on, but not much to do with the pets involved. So there's not much we can do about it, but there must be, I guess, lots of very scared dogs and cats out there having a thoroughly miserable time. Yeah,
particularly cats because of the water too, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Not that it, near mass destruction makes it any easier for a dog, but it's certainly pretty rough for cats too. And we find that, don't we, that inevitably it's, I guess, in the weeks following the storm, we'll get news stories of a dog stranded, can't find its owner, or I don't know, a random cat that's just been found and to be reunited. So it gets sort of sadder as time goes on, doesn't it? And of course, rehabilitating those animals is pretty difficult.
Yes, I mean, a trauma like a hurricane hitting is going to be quite hard to recover from. I mean, it puts fireworks kind of into perspective, really, doesn't it? Yeah. I mean, any tips if a hurricane hits Swindon?
What, today?
Yeah.
Drive away very quickly and take your pets.
Well, that's more sage advice. We actually pay him for this advice. It's amazing, isn't it? But it's worth paying you because not only are you an eminent behaviourist and Halloween actor, but you're also potentially a young entrepreneur of the year, yes, I hear. Yes. Tell us more.
I don't even know I entered. In fact, I don't think I did enter. Tomorrow are the finals of the Young Entrepreneur of the Year award, and I'm representing Buckinghamshire.
Really? Wow. Yes. Woo. Good luck, Jason.
I don't even know what it means.
Are you going to go and present? I mean, what are your credentials? If I can ask.
Let me to laugh so quickly after the word credentials.
Well, it's the young bit of the award that I thought was kind of inappropriate.
Do you know what? I know we're coming to this. When I was on telly the other day.
The
makeup artist said to me, "Oh, would you like some mascara?" And I thought, no, I don't want any mascara. What for? She said, "It was just like I noticed there's a few greys coming through there you might want to touch up." I thought, touch up your face with my fist, my love.
Last time they looked at me and they got the bottle of mascara and then it's not going to work, is it? But best of luck for that. So you're is that in your capacity of the behaviour company?
Yes, absolutely. Because we've grown, very, very quickly in just 3 years, and we have a puppy training academy, of course, and a retail company. So,
And where's that happening?
That is in Reading.
Reading?
I know.
Yeah.
But it's a very luxurious hotel chain in Reading.
Right.
That's why you'd want to stay in Reading. I used to live in Reading, and you want to stay.
There's a lot of people out there watching in Reading.
Well, in which case I condone their bravery for staying in Reading. I don't know why you'd have a luxury hotel chain in Reading, but there you go.
Anyway, but anyway, best of luck.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. And can we just behind the camera? Can we have a quick look over there? Because I just thought, as we've got a little dog going to sleep over there. Who have we got, Adrian? Quietly, Sam, very quietly. What's he in for? Castration.
Oh,
don't tell him. Okay. So, as you can see, we are really 100% live here at Vets Clinic. We have Sam the dog about to have his operation next door, and then Adrian will be joining us for the Q&A.
On the subject of cameras, can I ask a question? Because I was away last week. This 2-camera thing, where do I look? Are there people there as well?
There are people there. Camera 2. Can we wave to camera 2? We're waving to camera 2. Hello, camera 2. Hello. It's exciting, isn't it?
It is. It's a little confusing. Yeah. Which one do I look at?
Well, look at camera 1, I think. Right. Yeah, camera 1. Yeah. So anyway, so we've talked about that, and then let's have a quick chat about Alan Titchmarsh.
Yes.
Because I did the Birds of Prey, and then last week you weren't here because oh no, not here. And you've gone off to do some la-di-da proper telly. You said. So you went to
cameras.
So you went down to Alan Titchmarsh
Yes.
to do battle with certain Mr. Milan. So tell us about your day.
Yeah, well, the idea was that because Alan, if you saw Alan Titchmarsh last week, you know that Alan gave Caesar a good run for his money, and you know, talked about these very what's the word? Controversial training methods.
Cruel?
That yes, if you want, the training methods that Caesar Milan has, and gave him a good old time. I think Alan did pretty well in terms of showing the frustration and concern.
And there's been a real sort of double-sided reaction on Facebook and things, hasn't there? I mean, some people saying that it's fantastic what Alan did, and some people saying, you know, he was too tough. But from my point of view, I think you can't be too tough, really, can you? I mean, on a guy who punches dogs so. In the throat.
Yeah,
but,
exactly. I mean,
you know.
the whole thing has created a bit of a furore because, you know, people that love Caesar Milan, and let's face it, if you like what he does, then you like him as a star and a celebrity, not for the science, because what he does, undeniably, people say, oh, he doesn't punch dogs. Well, I've got some great footage. I'm always being sent footage of Caesar Milan hanging dogs up by a choke chain because it was growling at another dog, and some pretty ruthless stuff. So yeah, but I was there. Should Caesar Milan walk off? So the idea was that if Caesar Milan went, I've had enough of this Alan Titchmarsh, stop telling me I don't know how to train dogs, I'm going to run off. Yeah. They would say, great, let's get...
Get a proper dog trainer, or a dog behaviourist on.
How to deal with dogs. But sadly it didn't happen. However...
Despite your goading from the wings. Get off! You're crap!
I think I will be on in the new year. So
that'd be great.
I'd just like to publicly say congratulations to Alan on handling it so very, very well, because I know he was a little bit worried.
It's not really his style, is it, this confrontational thing?
No,
but I think he handled it really well, actually.
But I think you naturally feel a bit uneasy with someone that gets spray tanned so much like that. I mean, it must be... That's why they did it inside and not outside, in case it rained. You'd have just been exposed as being a very pale...
I don't know if this is libelous or not, but then we don't really care here on our little channel, do we?
It's only libelous if it's not true, isn't it?
Actually, it'd be slanderous because it was spoken, isn't that right?
Yes, but then again, it was true.
Well, isn't that more slander?
I don't
isn't
know.
That slander on the back? Anyway, let's move on before the Mr. Milan's legal team descend upon us, and look at some of the news stories that have been going on in the press in the dog world over the last couple of weeks or so. And we've got a great one here about this. This dog saves a choking owner's life by slapping her on the back and dislodging chicken from her throat. Quite what she was doing with the chicken in her throat,
I don't know. I don't think it was a whole chicken.
Oh, it wasn't a whole chicken.
I don't think it says that. But
look, it says here, slapping her back and dislodging chicken from her throat. Yeah. Look at that. It says chicken from her throat. So I think you'll find I am right on that. And I think that's quite a misleading headline because quite clearly she didn't have a chicken in her throat. But anyway, let's work on the hypothesis that it was only a chicken bone.
It's a piece of chicken.
A piece of chicken, and her dog, which is this great big dog, Akita, apparently then sort of heard her choking, struggling for air and all that, and then came in and gave her a great big sort of bear's paw wallop on the back.
Wow.
Fantastic. And then out comes the chicken.
Wow.
Out it comes. Flew away, and she's better. So I mean, that's another example of our wonderful relationship with dogs and how great. I mean, it's unlikely the dog knew what it was doing. I mean, it obviously didn't, did it? It was just.
Oh no, it certainly didn't know that if I put my paw there, it will replicate a cough.
Doing a Heimlich manoeuvre.
Absolutely, yeah.
Could you train a dog to do a Heimlich manoeuvre?
Well, not right now, because I'm teaching a dog to play a piano. But when I've done that, I reckon I could give it a good go.
Yeah.
They don't do the Heimlich manoeuvre so much anymore.
Do they not?
No, it's back slaps first.
Right.
And then chest thrusts, or abdominal thrusts, because Dr. Heimlich has a trademark over Heimlich manoeuvre.
Oh, so you can't do it.
So if you say the Heimlich manoeuvre, you have to pay him.
Really?
So don't say the Heimlich manoeuvre.
So don't say Heimlich manoeuvre.
No,
is that like Macbeth?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I only have to pay Macbeth.
Right.
Bad luck. That's brilliant, though.
Yeah, it's great, isn't it?
So she's all fine.
She's all fine. Dog's fine. Chicken doesn't comment on how the chicken is, but no. So, moving on to yawns. We alluded to this at the beginning. But I mean, we all know that yawns are contagious. Thank you. Yeah. And there's, I've read quite a lot over the years about why this is, and there was this theory that if the leader of this is in human sort of world, if the leader of the kind of human pack yawns, it's a sign for all the other subordinates that it's time to go to bed. Right. So there's that kind of communication kind of. You're not taking that. That was in the Beano, I think.
Brilliant.
All right, Mr. Clever Clogs, give us your theory on why yawns are contagious. Then.
Well, I mean, maybe prehistorically,
That's what I was prehistoric. I was talking prehistorically.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, back in the day.
Back in the day.
Yeah. So, but anyway, and it was also that certain other animals, particularly monkeys and apes, can sort of catch the yawns from people, and the children learn this behaviour of sort of infectious yawns from their parents at about the age of 4 or so. But it's never been thought that dogs, or never been shown that dogs do it. But apparently now it's been shown that dogs above the age of 7 months have shown evidence of contagious yawning. And I guess this is just further evidence of dogs' integration into the human social structure.
Yeah, I guess.
Or are you going to laugh at another of my theories?
No, I'm not, and I like that. But what I'd be interested to see is, because of course dogs use yawning as a self-soothing behaviour, so when they're stressed or anxious. So one of the things I often do to put into context for owners is to say, when you get home, don't intimidate your dog, don't do it near it, but a little bit away from your dog, crouch down, turn your head very gently to the side, and do a false yawn. Because to a dog, that combination of movement says, I'm not very comfortable, or I need to self-soothe, or pacifying behaviours.
So it's not, because in people, a yawn is, you have to be quite relaxed to do a yawn, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
So dogs, it's different, you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, they do yawn, obviously, when they're tired.
But they do this, would you call it a false yawn?
Yes, I mean, and they're shorter yawns. So like if you or I are very tired, we do it's quite a long yawn, just like dogs do. But a pacifying yawn is a shorter yawn. It's a lot quicker.
And it just makes them feel better for some reason.
It's self-soothe. So I wonder whether actually some of that may well have been double negatives. Would have to, I don't know, to see.
And do you have any thoughts on why people yawn or dogs yawn, or apart from this self-soothing thing, but a full yawn? I mean, there's theories about it getting more oxygen into the lungs, or.
Yeah, I suppose if lots of people yawn at the same time, you'd suck all the oxygen out of the room, wouldn't you?
So maybe it forces
other people to go quickly. I'm being a bit silly.
You're being silly.
I did read research once. I don't know. I mean, I don't read up on yawning. I have to say, I have a life.
Being the young entrepreneur of the year. I mean, that takes up a lot of time, doesn't it?
I've got a lot of grey to be mascaraing out. I've got time to be reading research about yawning. But I did learn that visual cues of a yawn trigger something in the amygdala, which is a part of your brain. The
place does with fear and things, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that then the yawn is a subconscious reaction to that. But I imagine every theory, there are lots of theories, and we still don't know.
It's one of those slightly mysterious things, isn't it?
But not like hiccups, because hiccups, there is actually a reason why people.
Is it is it the spasm in the diaphragm?
Yeah, that's right.
And my dog Jackie is terrified of hiccups. Yeah. That buzzing, by the way, which you can hear and just stopped, is young Sam having his bits clipped. Can we have a quick look at Sam? See how he's looking? There he is over there. He's he's just had his bits trimmed, and he's now going to get a scrub up from Stacey with some of our lovely blue disinfectant gloop, and then he'll go through to the theatre, just through those 2 doors, and have his operation. Anyway, coming back to our news stories, the last one, well, apart from the one that you've thrown in, is about the Old English Sheepdog has now been put on a breed watch list. So they're being hit, apparently it says here, by the growing popularity of so-called handbag dogs, such as Chihuahuas. New figures show there were just 316 puppy registrations for Old English Sheepdogs so far this year, and a breed is deemed vulnerable if registrations drop below 300. My point of view on these things is I don't really care, to be honest. And I know that it might get people's hacks up, but I don't really care, because I don't think I don't hold any great value in breeds. I think dogs are dogs. If the Old English Sheepdog goes, well, fine. There's plenty of other lovely dogs out there. Yes. We don't need breeds, and except in certain circumstances, you have dogs which are very well trained to do certain jobs of work. Fine. Otherwise, we just want dogs that are good companions, and if we want them to look a certain way, then fine. But I'm not going to lose any sleep if a certain breed dies out.
I think
would you agree with that, or do you want to?
Partly, I think there are 3 things I would say. One is in terms of heritage and history. Some breeds, it would be real sad to not see them around anymore. The second thing is a whole argument about breeding for coat colour and conformation, and that breeders generally think, this, like Dalmatians are a perfect example, the spots that they now breed the spots in. But of course, they didn't look at temperament and
deafness, which is linked to the spots.
Which are now bred in. So I get your point, actually, if we're really, really, really strict about breeds and breeding, you can end up with a real minefield on your hands. And the third thing I would say is, friends of ours are looking for a dog and said, which dog do we get? And I said, well, that's an open-ended question. I mean, how on earth do you answer that? You know, I mean, if they say, well, what about a Labrador, but we don't have much time to exercise it, well, then that's, you know, tons of breeds out. I think there are too many breeds available to choose from, and that's partly why people are getting the wrong breed, because they say that one looks really cute, we'll have that one, and they don't understand that actually the cute-looking husky
needs 10 miles a day and exactly.
Will jump. Yeah.
And I mean, but to come back to your first point about it being a shame that we lose breeds, I mean that is kind of true, but not if that breed is not a healthy one. And I'm not saying the Old English Sheepdog is particularly unhealthy, but I would say, but there are breeds out there who I would be quite happy to see the back of, and I have to say things like the Bulldog, and I know there's lots of Bulldog owners out there throwing their Bulldogs into the air, and that's just my point of view. So I think,
is that because of health?
Health, that's purely on health grounds. I think everyone should have a nice crossbreed dog.
And is that because things like pugs, for example, like had the shorter face, and vets always say they're prone to collapse tracheas?
They are, and the fact, I mean, it's inbreeding. I mean, if you marry your sister, the chances are you're going to have genetic problems in your children, and if you keep on, they marry their sister, and you're going to get more and more genetic, sort of less genetic diversity.
We shouldn't have kids then?
Me and you, no.
No, my sister.
No, you shouldn't.
Oh,
no.
gosh.
Yes.
Right, okay.
And on that bombshell, should we change the subject? Yeah. Oh, we've got a message. I've got a message. I've got a message.
Go on.
Oh, look at this. In the news yesterday, sheepdog that sold for over £8,000. It says question mark. Does that mean I'm answering you, or?
Wow,
I don't know.
That's incredible. £8,000.
But sheepdog, not obviously the same necessarily as an Old English sheepdog, or maybe it was an Old English sheepdog. It was an old. I'm getting some nods. A working sheepdog, so probably not an Old English sheepdog. £8,000. Well, maybe that's because they're becoming so rare.
Well, I was going to say, if they're £8,000, that's why 300 people only have one. So this is the last story. Sniffer dog finds stowaways in coffin truck. And 3 Africans have been caught trying to enter Britain illegally in a truck loaded with coffins. And the dog, Mitzi's the sniffer dog, sniffed out the human cargo.
That must have been quite a worrying moment at the time when they got the coffin truck and they thought, Bob, the dog's just, I can hear something. Can you hear some scratching inside? What's the date? It's kind of...
Oh yeah, it's topical, isn't it? So so lovely Mitzi prevented these 3 stowaways from getting in across the French border. So again, just another perfect example of how brilliant dogs are to help us get on with our lives. People always whinge and say, oh, we shouldn't have dogs running around, or they should have licenses and all the rest of it, but they bring so much good, don't they, and so much benefit.
They do. And just before we move on, just come back to this issue of dog breeding. I know it's a contentious one, and there's lots of, there's lots of lovely breeds out there, so I don't want it to come across that I'm completely anti these breeds. But if you've got a point of view and you want to join in this discussion, then Facebook is the place to do it. So put your messages on there, and if you've got a completely different point of view about these breeds, particularly the Old English Sheepdog, let us know. And don't forget, we're having this competition about costumes for your pets. So something to do with Halloween, anything, a snippet of information about what you're going to dress your pet up as, or even better, a photo, then pop them on our Facebook page and you can win a bag of Vet's Kitchen food. But we're now going to move on to talk about travel with your pets. And before we have our chat, we've got a little video.
Oh, brilliant.
So we're going to have a little video with just some advice I put together about travelling with your pet. With our pets now seen as loved members of the family by most pet owners, it's not surprising that more and more of us want our pets to share our travels with us. And increasing numbers of families now include their pets in their holiday plans, as well as taking them on routine journeys to visit friends and for work. But whilst it's great in theory, travelling with your pet isn't always as straightforward as it might seem, and there are all sorts of pitfalls to be aware of if you're going to avoid problems. Firstly, I'd only recommend recreational travel for dogs. Most other species, particularly cats, find travel pretty stressful. For cats in particular, getting in the car means only one of 2 things, either a trip to the vet or to the cattery. If you do have to travel with your cat, then the most important priority is to keep them secure and comfortable. So a suitable travel basket is essential. The same applies for dogs on short journeys. Many dogs are happy to get into the boot and travel in the boot, which is fine. But for longer journeys, I'd recommend using a seatbelt harness. These are a great way of keeping your dog secure on longer journeys. In you get, Jack. And all they do is they click onto the back of your dog's harness, like so. And then in the event of an accident, the seatbelt will stop your dog flying forwards. It's also important on longer journeys to plan in stops so your dog can go to the loo and have a drink. And you can also get some very good water bowls now which are non-spill, so you can have them in the car and your dog can drink as you're going along. Well, there were some tips on just generally travelling with your pet, but before we come on to talk about your stuff, we've had a couple of pictures through for our competition already, including this one from Liz with her dog Charm dressed up as Harry Potter, so I don't know if you can see that. It's not really Halloween dressing up, but no. It's still a pretty impressive costume.
I think I judged that dog in a dog show competition.
Really?
And I'm pretty certain that Charm got first place, I think. It was most like their owner, I think. I forget where that was now. It might have been Bicester or Berkshire somewhere.
I've got another one here from Mary Maddow Gladdy Wild, what a name. The Curse of Mummy and the Mummy's Cur. So look, there is a dog. There's the dog. They got. Look at that. So we've got Mum dressed up as something, and the dog dressed up as well. So that's what we want for our Halloween photo competition. So more of those coming in would be great. But thanks for sending those ones in.
I was a bit disappointed in that video.
The Curse of the Mummy
video, not to see you pretending to be a dog travelling in the back of a car, panting away out the window.
Is that something?
I always have to be the dog.
Well, there's something about our relationship, Jez. You know, there's kind of, you know, that sort of alpha dog, you know, thing. No, right. Anyway, let's move on from that slightly embarrassing silence and talk about travel. So, travel with your dog. Or let's focus on dogs to begin with. Yep. I mean, the main issues people face, I guess, are travel sickness, anxiety, and they're probably quite often linked. You know, the things that we suggested in the video there, so sort of regular stops, seat belts, and getting the dog up so they can see out the front. Yep. Things, you know, those kind of approaches are all very well. I mean, what, from your perspective as a behaviourist, what kind of issues do you see and how do you deal with them?
Well, dogs seeing outside of the car is a good thing, providing that they don't, you know, react to, I don't know, people walking by, or some dogs bark loads at cars or people or dogs or whatever, in which case then, you know, perhaps cover their crate up is a better solution. But for most dogs, yeah. And I think teaching them to like being in the car, because it's such an unusual sensation. You know, we're used to being from a child, being in cars and being in motion. So is it
socialisation at an early age? Yeah, get them in the car when they're 8 weeks old.
And tiny short trips. And if you think about it, when do I normally take my dog in the car? Well, normally to the vet. And then, of course, they associate the car being with, oh no, horrible place. You know, they come to the vet, they can smell anal gland discharge from fear, and they think, oh, this isn't a good place to be, and they can smell disinfectant, and they get stabbed and whatever. So take your dog out into tiny short trips, even if it's literally just off the drive to the end of the road.
And make it fun, give them some treats.
Park your car up and then go for a lovely walk or something. Yeah.
Your neighbours are going to go, God, they're lazy at number 37, aren't they? Just drive down the end of the road.
Be talking about you again. Yeah. And yeah, just make it fun. I mean, I give the dogs loads of nice bedding and stuff, so it's comfy in the car, because of course, you know, they're having to balance all the time. It's a bit strenuous on the muscles. So they lay down, nice bed in the car, and I give them a nice stuffed squirrel do with, you know, tasty treats and stuff.
Something to occupy their mind whilst they're going along.
Yeah, and then make sure, and just think about it all the time, because my dogs come with me a lot in the car. If I travel around a lot and I don't like leaving them on their own for too long, so they come with me when we have fun. And you just think, what could, if we're going to take the dogs with us, maybe build in another 20 minutes, that's all, into your journey. Stop off at the side of the road, maybe where there's a field or something, a public right of way, or just up and down around some streets or something, just to give them a bit of stretch to their legs.
It is hard, though, isn't it, if you've got a busy schedule, you know, to build that time in and stuff.
It is hard, yeah. But I think thinking ahead of time, though, it does help. You know, like you live in the countryside, for example, so if you were going to bring, I don't know, say this was an hour journey to work or something for you, then you'd leave an hour and a half or something and stop off halfway, give Jack a little quick run around. You know, 5-10 minutes is all the difference, isn't it, rather than being in the car for ages. And you
brought with you, is that another part of your Halloween costume, your sort of gimp harness, or is this something to do with them?
I skipped the orange. Yeah, this is, I think harnesses are brilliant. I'm not a big fan of crates and cages for dogs travelling in the car.
Right.
And the reason is that they're not particularly stable and safe. So if you have a crash, you know, heaven forbid you have a crash, then the dog gets thrown around all over the place. And in road tests, they're not seen to be particularly sturdy. Whereas this is a harness, you know, you clip around the dog, the head goes here, woof, 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 and this goes around the belly. Yep. And then on the end of it, it's got a little seatbelt plug. So that just plugs straight into your seatbelt, and you've got all this nice room so the dog can move around and sit
and then if you were to brake heavily or crash, they get caught.
They've got the retention, just the retainer.
Dog
just,
sort of
in midair. But the nice thing about these is that they have a handle on here too. So if you need to go for a little walk,
Actually, you can use it as a harness, as a lead.
Absolutely.
That's quite cool,
or
isn't
you can
it?
shorten it if you want to. So this obviously is that bit doesn't go anywhere. That just slots straight into the seatbelt plug. But if you were to loop the seatbelt, the actual seatbelt proper, through this and plug in, then of course that will.
You've got more available from online good pet shops, place like that.
So, or in a local pet shop. Yeah. Cool. But personally, and I suppose it is a bit of a personal opinion, but I'm a fan of harnesses rather than.
Right.
And that brings us, I guess, lastly onto the final point, which is that the dog must be secured. In just the same way that if you brake suddenly and your child in the back wasn't secured and they go.
But I mean, I put my dog Jack in the boot of my car, and he's not secured in there. He sits in the boot. And he's fine. I mean, am I doing the wrong thing? Should I?
Do you have a guard to stop him?
No, but he has a kind of. It's he's not that big, and the back of the seats, you can put his head over them, but he can't get over them.
I would argue that that's bad, and I would argue if you brake suddenly, and I've seen you driving, and you probably would regularly, the dog through the perpetual motion could be thrown forward, couldn't it? Just as a child would be. I mean, if you wouldn't put your child in the car without a seatbelt, then why would you put your dog in? It's the same amount of weight, right? 30 kilograms of weight being thrust forwards.
But I don't think he's going to get past the back seat, to be honest.
Okay, well that's good for you.
But what options have I got in the back? I mean, if you're saying that, so I'd have to put him on the back seat to use one of.
Which in your Aston Martin or in the?
It's in the Bentley.
In the Bentley.
In the Bentley. Yeah.
Well, they have seatbelt things in the boots of Bentleys, so that will be.
But I mean, assuming so in a normal boot of a normal car, it's a crate or nothing, really, isn't it?
And that's the point. If you haven't got anywhere to have the harness, then I would put them in a crate and secure the crate down. Most boots of normal cars have points, guide points where you can secure the crate. Because if, heaven forbid, you crashed or you rolled the car, and it's not like these things don't ever happen.
No.
They happen quite frequently, unfortunately, and it's never you, is it? It's never you.
Funny you should mention that.
Someone else is driving, right? And if you did end up, turning the car on the side or flipping it or spinning around very quickly, at least the dog's contained.
Fair point. Has anyone out there had experience to back this up? Have you had any accidents with your dogs or pets in the car? And does that prove the point or otherwise? I mean, I don't want to hear
I'd
any
be quite interested to hear
terrible stories.
What the viewers actually prefer. I mean, do you prefer a harness with a seatbelt indicating point, or do you prefer a cage, or do you not? We could have a free discussion on the Vets Clinic Facebook page about how you secure your dog, and if you don't, and please don't look. Everybody's entitled to their own opinion. Please don't flame and slag off people that say, "Oh, I have my dog on the roof rack and he loves it." I think everybody should be allowed to put their point across, and we can get a nice, kind of.
We've got a picture on there now, so if you put your comments for this subject on that picture, then we can have a discussion there. So that's anything else you want to mention about travel, or are we done travel?
Well, there are loads of cool places you can take your dog, because I think a lot of people generally don't take their dog out, do they? But on my blog this summer just gone, I researched loads of places you could take your dog. So which trains you can take your dog on, which beaches you can take your dog to, which hotels. And I think more places are becoming more dog friendly, which means you can get your dog out. It's really good enrichment.
It is, it's
Because last week, or the week before, we were talking about the fact that, in 8 hours, when you go to work, your dog just sees the same environment for 8 hours or however long they're left.
My dog's he's busy writing a novel, actually.
Is he still?
Yeah.
A bit slow.
He is a bit slow. I think we should wind this up, because I can see Adrian over in the corner of the prep room over there, looking like he wants to get on and talk about veterinary questions.
Adrian and I look a little bit similar. I mean, obviously I'm fantastically more attractive than Adrian is, but I think one week we should do a swap, and Adrian should grow his hair a little bit, and he could do behaviour advice, and I could do veterinary. Let's stick to what you're good at and answer this question. All right.
Patty Westmore has said she wants some advice on introducing a second dog to the family. The best way to pick the right breed, male or female, and helpful tips for ensuring that the new dog accepts them.
Well, that's a brilliant question, because ultimately this comes down to, and I don't want to ruin your fun, Patty, but it comes down to, does the dog want another dog?
How do you know?
Well, let's think, the analogy I always give is, if I turned up to Patty's house and said, "Hi, this is my great Aunt Maud, by the way, she's incontinent and 93, she'll be staying with you for the rest of her life, okay, bye," and then walked off, you think, well, I don't get any choice in this. Now, dogs innately will choose their social structure themselves. So when we introduce a new dog that we think, oh, we really like this dog, and the dogs don't get on, you can't really be that surprised by it, because you're choosing the social structure for the dog. So new dogs often fight. There are sexes that fight more, so 2 males that are entire will fight a lot. 2 females will fight a lot, so I always think a male-female combination neutered is a good combination, probably the best combination. dogs are a social species, so more than one dog is always a good dog, and you want to try and, if you're going to introduce another dog, try and do it as young as possible. So if you think, you know, your puppy's, I don't know, coming up to 6 months old, and you think, oh, it'd be nice to get a puppy, then it's a good time, and nice and mouldable.
I mean, there's no real way of knowing with breed, and we come back to our discussion on breeds. I mean, if you've got an old English sheepdog, is it going to work best with a Jack Russell or a Great Dane? I mean, you can't really tell, can you?
No,
or are there certain characteristics of breeds that make them compatible?
Well, I think you have to be careful of things like innate instincts. So if you've got a husky, for example, they have innate predatory drive. You don't want to be getting something small and fluffy,
right?
Because
that's
you
a good
risk
point. Yeah.
potential problems there. And all of those dogs that have predation. Or, for example, if you were thinking, oh, I love miniature Dachshunds.
Dachshund or Dachshund? That's one of the questions, isn't it?
Well, yeah, that is very true. Now, it's a German name, and my best friend's mother is German, and she said it is pronounced Dachshund.
Dachshund.
But everyone goes Daxi or Dachshund.
Yeah.
I don't know where the Daxi came from, because there's no X or any combination of the above in there. But if you had a miniature Daxi, Dachshund, sausage dog, Dachshund, however you want to say it, and then you had a, I don't know, really athletic dog like a working Labrador, they would be pretty incompatible.
Yeah.
So I think there are breed combinations you need to think of. But the thing I would say is maybe borrow a dog from a rescue pound or something like that, a dog-friendly one, bring it home and see how your dog reacts. And if they're quite happy with it, then great. And if they are a bit prickly, thinking, well, hang on a minute, this is my space, then you know, do you know what? A dog's not the thing for us.
Cool, good. Well, thank you very much. I think I've just seen some kind of skeleton walking outside over there. So we have over there. Looking at the phone, we have Jessie from Swindon's Needy Dogs. Hello, give us a wave. And a skeleton. Today, give us a wave, skeleton. We have a wave.
A shy skeleton.
A shy skeleton. Come back, Archie. Come back. The poor skeleton's getting... so we're going to be talking to Jessie next. But first of all, we've got we've featured quite a lot of videos from Swindon's Needy Dogs over the last few weeks. So we thought we'd kind of recap this week, and then we'll catch up with Jessie and update you on how each of the cases are getting on and whether any of them found their homes. So rather than introducing a new dog, we've got a catch up of the last two dogs. So we're going to play that now, but I think it's probably time to say goodbye to you, because we're going to move on to Adrian later on. So thanks very much for your contribution as always. And here's a summary of our Swindon's Needy Dogs.
He's obedient, he does everything you tell him to do. As long as he's in the house, it's fine. Just doesn't like other dogs, really.
Jack is an absolute dream of a dog. He's so friendly, very relaxed, so interested when you take him out for a walk, and he's an absolute delight to walk.
He's met a lot of dogs over the fields, just sort of down the way, and he's been brilliant. We've not let him off the lead with other dogs at the moment because he seems sort of infatuated by dogs, whether he's not seen any. He just thinks they want to play with him. I'm not quite convinced at the moment that he will come back when there's dogs around. But there's no sort of aggression towards dogs or anything. He just wants to play with them all.
I have fostered in the past for another rescue, and recently I came to see on the internet SN Dogs, the Swindon Needy Dogs, and thought I ought to help a local foster, to help foster locally. And I contacted Jessie, and she came up with Domino, and we couldn't resist helping him because he's such a darling.
He loves his cuddles. He's brilliant for company. No problem at all. But you have to have, you've got to be going out for walks all the time with him.
He's an active home.
Yes, very.
Just engrossed looking at all these pictures of dogs with funny costumes. But I'm delighted to say we're joined by Jessie, and just talk us through the dogs we've seen. I've got first on your list is Sophie. And her lovely pup. So what's the latest with Sophie?
Amazing, isn't she?
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like she's been reserved.
Excellent.
We think we've
Great
got a
news.
lovely home for her by the seaside.
Really?
Yeah, the lady's called Sophie.
Not in Swindon then, obviously.
No. The lady's called Sophie, so she's going to need a name change.
Yeah.
But yeah, no,
And the
looks
pups?
lovely.
Is she going to take any of the pups?
No,
or?
she's not taking any of the pups.
Right.
Hopefully the little black and tan one's reserved. He's interesting, he's got wrinkles forming here.
Right.
So it's quite interesting, might have a bit of bully breed in there.
Yeah.
But the little silver dapple one that looks like Mummy has not got a home yet. He's got quite a deep coat. So don't know.
He's a gorgeous puppy. Someone out there must want to give him a home.
Maybe we'll bring him back next week.
Yeah. Bit of puppy.
Their eyes
puppy
are
action
open
would be
and
great.
they're starting to walk around
Yeah.
and growl at things and trying to eat food already.
Right. And how old are they now? About 3 weeks, aren't they?
Yeah, they're 3 weeks.
Yes,
Yes,
yeah. Okay.
And we've got Domino. Now, a bit of a sad story about Domino. He went out to a home and they weren't maybe ready for a puppy quite. We thought they were, and he came back again.
That's a shame,
So,
isn't it?
yeah,
'Cause that kind of
Domino-
puts things back, doesn't it? If he's doesn't help him, does it? If he goes to home and then
No,
comes back
and
again.
his foster home, who had him before, were away, so they couldn't take him back, so he's had to go to a different foster home.
Right. So he's been
Yeah,
passed
so-
around a bit. So he's still a work in progress. Then.
Yeah, which is a shame because he's such a young, lovely boy. You know? People are missing the best part of a dog's life.
Yeah.
So-
And it's such a crucial part of their life as well, isn't it?
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. So so there's that. He's now in a foster home with another dog.
So still looking for a home? Yep.
Still looking
Okay.
for a home. Lovely. He's starting to come out of himself. He's a bit bouncy, getting a bit cheeky. It's all good. He's settling in. We've got Zeus, who's a lovely sort of crossbreed, orangey
yeah.
dog. Came in to see Jez earlier today,
Yeah.
just to sort of like have a chat about general behaviour, training. Nothing really wrong with him. He's a lovely dog. He needs another dog in the family just because he wants somebody to play with. He's a lad. He wants somebody to rough and tumble with. You know,
Yeah.
bit of a character.
What about Archie? He's got a home, hasn't he?
Yeah, Archie's got a home.
Yeah.
He's got his own Facebook page. He has his own Facebook page.
What things I've eaten? Kind of.
No, his profile picture is of him actually licking the inside door of the dishwasher.
I need to see this. What's his Facebook page?
Archie something. I'm not sure
Archie
what his last
something.
name is, yeah.
I probably won't be able to find him, will I?
No, I don't know.
We'll see if we can find
Yeah,
it and
well,
put the
I'll find
photo up
that.
somewhere.
Yeah,
But
Some cool pictures. He met with Poppet the other week, didn't he?
Yep,
There were some pictures
yep,
of him
yep.
meeting with Poppet.
So-
Were they on today's show, pictures?
quite possibly.
Because there was a picture of Poppet and Archie and some other dogs
Right.
together.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, that was on.
Okay. Yeah. So and obviously we've got Poppet who's here
Around
somewhere.
here somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, she looked like she was behaving a bit
She's
better
doing
now.
pretty well actually. Less barky, which is good. Yeah.
She's like Adrian any better yet?
No, she really doesn't like Adrian. She's been much better with everyone else, but not Adrian. So,
And we've got Bert, who is going to need a bit of intense training. He was in a kennel for quite a long time, and he was due to be put to sleep on Thursday, and then on the Wednesday, somebody rang up and said, "I'll foster."
right,
And
that's
they-
cutting it fine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very fine. And he was so skinny. His pictures were horrendous of him when he first came in. I didn't see him when he first came in. Now he's a lovely dog, but I think mentally he's got some issues. He's quite nervous, really. So,
Not
yeah,
surprising, really,
bit
being
of
on death row.
ongoing work
Yeah,
going on
yeah.
with him. He's seen Jez today as well, so yeah.
Crikey, yeah.
The protein sort of being adjusted in his
Okay,
food.
yeah.
And then we've got George, who's he's lovely. He should be called Tank though. Looks like a train. Lovely dog. He'd be brilliant for any family. Loves going to the beach, playing
Right.
at the seaside. So yeah,
So we've made some progress, but we've still got about 3 or 4 that need homes. And as always, swindonsneedydogs@gmail.com
Yep.
is the. I'm getting signs that we've got a picture. Have we got a picture? Let's have a look. What have we got? Oh, is this Archie? Let's have a look at this. Thank you. This is Archie driving. Can we see this? So this is one of Swindon's needy dogs that was briefly resident here, and he's been successfully rehomed, and he's obviously enjoying himself by the looks of things. So there we are, Archie, a real success story, that one.
We've had a few others like Nelson, who was rehomed from us, but he never quite featured on your show. And other dogs, obviously, that we deal with that we don't foster. We had a lady who was like a huge Staffy cross bulldog type thing. She went off to another rescue and found a home. We've had Euthanagan, I think it's pronounced right, that we helped with. That went off to RSPCA in Exeter, I believe.
Cool.
Now gone and been rehomed.
Brilliant. Well, I'm glad it's working out. So hopefully, hopefully we won't have a new. Well, we'll have a new dog next week, if you know what I mean. But
we'll bring puppies. And
let's have puppies next week. So so that was the latest from Swindon's Needy Dogs, and we've got our Q&A with Adrian coming up any minute. But before that, we've got one of the most amazing cases that any of us here at Vets Clinic, in all our capacities as vets and nurses over the years, have ever seen. It really is a fascinating case and really well worth watching. So take a look at this. This is the case of Misty the cat.
This is Misty, and Misty's a 6-year-old cat that came to see me because her owner's very worried that her tummy's really swollen up, and hopefully you'll be able to see here that actually she's really ballooned up like a football. She's usually a very skinny little cat, but she's got a massive tummy on her, and I've put a little needle into that because it's fluid that's in there, and what we're dealing with is pus. Looks like pus in the syringe, and it looks like pus down the microscope, so we think we've got an infection somewhere. Now what we're hoping is that the owner reports that the pus usually comes out of her after a season, so we're hoping that she's got pus in her uterus, and this is just the craziest pyometra, infection of the uterus that we've ever seen. But until we get in there and have a look, I can't guarantee that it's not free pus that's floating around in there or pus that's somewhere else. But that said, if it was free pus or pus somewhere else, she's actually very healthy otherwise. She's eating, she's well in herself. The only issue she's got is this big swollen tummy, so it's going to be really interesting to go in there and see what's causing it, and hopefully it'll be something that we can fix. Misty's all asleep now. We've clipped the area that we're interested in, and she's been scrubbed up, ready to go. I've scrubbed myself. I just need to dry my hands and get into my gown and gloves, and we can make a start. She's out here on the table. You can probably see that we've got her on an angle because we don't want all that pressure in her tummy to restrict her ability to breathe. And she's also on quite a high fluid rate now because that pressure when she's on her back actually restricts the blood return to the heart from the body. So we need to keep her blood pressure up as high as possible. So that's what's going on, and we'll make a start in a few minutes' time. Okay, going to make a start. Make a little incision over the skin. Going to stroke down to the muscle there.
It's going to be babies, okay?
Okay, so it looks like it is an infection of the uterus.
Is there babies in there?
No. Everything you see here is the uterus filled with fluid, filled with the pus. We've got to be really careful that we don't pop the uterus when we're getting it out, because that pus will go into the abdomen and you'll get a peritonitis, which is fatal in a lot of cases. So we're just going to gently tease it all out.
I don't think I've seen one that big in a dog.
So that's the whole uterus out now. This is the two horns here and the central bit in the middle. Usually the uterus of a cat would be probably smaller than this blood vessel you can see here or these intestines, but because it's so full of this fluid, it's filled up massively, but this is impressive. Out it's popping, yeah. The uterus all removed, and she's all stitched up, and now if I take this off, hopefully you'll see a bit of a difference in her size. It's going to feel a bit better, I think. So we've emptied out our uterus now, so this is what's left behind, and this is all the fluid that came out from inside the uterus, if you can see. But a good couple of litres there that was inside this cat, so she's a lot lighter now. We'll go and weigh her in a second and see what percentage of her body weight she's lost. So Misty's all come round brilliantly from the surgery. She's made a really good recovery. She's lost almost 3 kilos in weight, in pus, which when you consider that she was only 5.7 kilos to start with, means she's lost over half her body weight in pus, which is which is crazy. So she probably feels much lighter and much better. And I think she's probably being a bit hungry now. So we're going to feed her now she's come round. As you can see, she's pretty hungry. Yeah, pop it. And pretty skinny too. So she'll go home today with some pain relief and some further antibiotics, and we'll see her back in a couple of days. But she should, now that's all out, make a complete recovery and go on to live a normal life, which is great. So the owner and me are really happy with how she's done.
Right, wasn't that just the most amazing thing?
It was incredible.
I've just never seen anything quite like it. I mean, I've seen pyometrius womb infections in dogs, probably about that size, maybe. But in a cat, it was just amazing, wasn't it?
She was fine. That was
yeah, I mean, I saw her when she came in. She was quite happy, but she was the size of a kind of balloon, a water balloon, wasn't she? I mean, she was like Garfield at his fattest.
The owner kept telling me about how at home she was fine. She was running around. She was jumping on and off the table. I just thought, oh, every time that jumps onto the floor, is it going to explode inside?
Yeah, and it's amazing what the uterus can, even because a cat's uterus is normally smaller than your little finger, isn't it? I mean, it's a tiny little thing, and it was the size of your leg. I mean, it was just absolutely.
I'll never see anything like that again.
No, and she's fine, isn't she?
Yeah.
Full recovery.
She's having her stitches out a couple of days' time, but she's much better.
Yeah. I mean, it's amazing, really, how animals how resilient they are. And I think the best bit of that whole film was when we saw her in recovery, like half an hour after the operation, eating her dinner. I mean, she'd had more than her own body weight removed from inside her, and there she is eating her dinner. It's just absolutely amazing. So, well done. Congratulations. Great case. Before we get on to your Q&A, we've just got some comments on our discussion on travelling with your pets. Jo Macy has said she has a fully fitted out dog van fitted with crates and a fan, but she travels sort of unknown dogs, keeps them apart from each other and keeps them safe. So that's obviously the kind of the best way to do it. Carla has said she's got a dog guard fitted to her rear seats and tiers in the boot with a full boot liner, which has grip so she doesn't slip around. So that's probably really what I should do with Jack. Yeah. And Sophie has a harness cured one of our dogs of car sickness, as the other one, but the other one prefers being in a crate in the boot. I only have a small car, and the fur plus Atlas is perfect for my Patterdale. So thank you for those comments. Keep them coming in. I've got a few more pictures as well, which is great. We'll come on to those in a minute. But let's whip through some veterinary questions.
Yep.
So quite an interesting one to start with.
Yeah.
I'm glad I'm asking the questions and answering them. So Jo Maisie said fluoxetine, which is Prozac for dogs. Pros and cons, obviously alongside a BMP.
Behavioural modification program, I would imagine.
That's what we're thinking. It could be big. Anyway, carry on. Assuming all other vet checks have been carried out, thanks. So what's your view of the use of Prozac in dogs?
Well, my suspicion is this question might have come from Jez, because it's his new thing.
Yeah.
It's been around for quite a while, obviously in the human market, and America's been doing it for a little while now, and we're kind of just catching up. So it shows a lot of potential, but not a lot of people in this country yet have a lot of experience with it, and we're working quite heavily with Jez now to get
we typically think of Prozac being used to treat depression, because it's a selective serotonin uptake inhibitor, isn't it? So it means that there's more serotonin,
more of the
happy chemical floating around, or serotonin, as Jez says. But how is that applicable to dog cases? Because we don't really recognise depression as such in dogs, do we?
I'm sure it happens, but no, it's more for things like obsessive behaviours, anxieties, that kind of thing. We can use them in those cases. It's supposed to, in the dogs that it works in, it rapidly increases how quickly they get better. So their improvements are more dramatic quickly, but the end point that you'll get to is probably about the same. So if your behaviour improvement was going from here to here, instead of
with behavioural modification,
you'll go there much quicker. So you're not going to get a better end result, but you might get there quicker.
And the cons, cost, I suppose.
Yes, cost. I suppose the fact that not a lot of vets are aware of it currently, or completely up to speed with it, that has to go in as a con currently. I don't think it's hugely expensive, so I'm not sure I'd put cost in there, especially considering some.
Any drug, I suppose, can have side effects.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And I think the main ones that you see with Prozac are sometimes they can be lethargic or anorexic. They can't go on it if they're on certain other drugs, and they can't go on it if they've got certain other conditions.
And how does it fit in with other behavioural modification drugs, things like clomicalm and those
so
kind of?
that would be one of the examples of the drug you probably couldn't use it in conjunction.
And different sort of indications, would you use them for different things? I think drugs like that tend to be used as far as I understand, sort of open a window to let you train the dog. They kind of make the mind more receptive to training. So it sounds like they kind of overlap with Prozac in some ways.
Yeah, I think that currently the Prozac's being used for the more extreme cases,
right,
where you really need to see an improvement quite rapidly.
Right. Okay. So for the dog, that it's either give it a try or it's put down kind of thing. Right. That's interesting stuff. So I hope that helps, Joe. Sandra's emailed in and said, any advice for feeding a dog allergic to storage mites, wheat, soya and rice? Oh, and dust mites. So allergic to pretty much everything. I mean, I suppose I can have a go at that one in that from my nutrition background, but I mean, storage mites are, you know, associated with dry foods. Yes. So I suppose feeding a wet food is a good place to start with that. Wheat and soya, there's a lot of foods out there which are free from wheat and soya, so that shouldn't be a problem. And again, with rice, I mean, there are sort of rice-free, grain-free foods out there. So I think it should be relatively easy to find a food that actually meets all those criteria. Dust mites is not really going to be related to food. It's going to be more, I mean, they're just in the environment. There's not an awful lot you can do about those. And the other option, of course, for this is raw feeding. I mean, it's not something I normally advocate, but obviously you can avoid all of those issues with raw feeding. Mm-hmm. So, you know, I think that should be quite achievable, really. You know, and just look for foods which don't contain those ingredients, and probably steer away from dry foods towards wet foods or raw foods to avoid the storage mites. So moving on, so Denise and Winnie from Pet Ranger has a 7-month-old working cocker, Winnie, and I'm in a dilemma as to when is the best time to have a spade. And we've discussed this before. She's saying before or after her first season. Having read a few articles online, I'm now more confused with the risk of bone cancer if you spay too early, underdevelopment in the dog, incontinence, and so on. So it's this old chestnut, really, isn't it? We've discussed before, but there's pros and cons, aren't there? And it's
there is. I mean, the fact that it keeps coming up shows that there isn't really one right answer that's out there, and it's trying to get the best overall for the policy that we have as a clinic. But it might be that for one dog in particular that you change that because it's better for that dog.
I think the bone cancer risk is more bigger breeds.
Yes,
so,
I think Rottweilers is the classic one that have the higher risk if you spay them before like a year of age. But even then, that risk isn't...
It's tiny, isn't it?
It's tiny.
But that might push you. But for a normal... I mean, I think generally our policy here is to do them after their first season. It probably reduces the risk of the incontinence. Personally, I find the surgery easier once they've had a season.
Once they've had a season, yeah. And the main issue for me about doing it before their first season is, of course, they might just be about to come into season. You don't know when they are, and you don't really want to be spaying a dog that's in season. So it's just easier to do it once you know they've had that first season.
So I think, I mean, so the answer to the question probably is all things being equal, and with a working cocker, she's not going to be at any significant risk of bone problems as a result. We would say after first season, sort of 7, 8, 9 months or so probably. So she's 7 months old. If she's, I mean, I normally say if they haven't had a season by the time we get to about 9 months, you might as well just spay them. If they've had a season, then wait 3 months and then do it. So that would be our advice. But you know, it is a confusing subject, and you could probably look at all the kind of advice out there and come to a different conclusion. But you know, we've considered that in quite a lot of detail over the weeks here, and that's our advice. Last one for today, Carol Wood. My dog, especially in the evenings, will sometimes have quite deep pink-red membranes in her ears and mouth. Unable to find any obvious reason for this, and wonder if this is anything to worry about. Could it be caused by stress or pain, or is it just a characteristic of my dog? So, membranes in the ears and the mouth. So,
good question. So, generally speaking, the membranes, especially inside the mouth, should be kind of a light salmon pink type colour. And if you press on them, they should blanch, should go white, and then it should come back to the normal colour again after about 2 seconds. Not really much before and not really much afterwards. And if we were seeing a dark red colour, the worry is infection. That's generally what we're talking about. We've got a dark red colour, and they tend to come back to that dark red really quickly. So within about half to 1 second, they go back to that dark red again. But I think it's really unlikely, if your dog's doing this routinely, that you're dealing with an infection that's the cause. So perhaps it's sometimes when dogs get really stressed, not stressed, or really excited, wound up, they can go.
And you get more blood flow, don't you, to the extremities. I mean, a hot dog might be the other reason, getting too hot.
And I suppose allergy could be on the list as well. So if you have an allergic dog, that can happen. I think if you're worried, perhaps take some footage of it or something like that and show the vet and get them to check her over.
Or send it to us. I mean, you send it to us and put it on our Facebook page and we'll have a look. But it sounds likely to be normal because it's some dogs just have pinkish reddish skin, don't they? And if they've got a thin coat, it's more visible. Yeah. So brilliant. Well, thank you. We've had a few more comments on our discussion on safety in travel. Carla has said, I also have a dog on board sign, so God forbid we ever have an accident, the emergency services will know there's a dog on board. That's a good idea. Sophie said again, one enjoys riding my godson's child seat. So that's probably an interesting way to travel. Leanne has said he always gets a good walk to tire him out beforehand and make sure he's done his business, and he has the whole back seat to himself with a blanket with regular stops. So that's a good idea, I think, you know, getting them exercise first so they sleep. And Julie has said a dog guard and a stable door in one car, crate in the other, but she does also use a harness and a seatbelt. So it sounds like we've got some very responsible dog owners out there watching our show, which is great. So thank you all for your comments. Final thing for today before we go is just to come up with a winner for our competition, and I think it has to be Mary Maddow Gladdy Wild, which is a great name anyway, with The Curse of Mummy and Mummy's Cur, because it's the only one actually with a picture of a dog dressed up. We could just, where's it gone? We could just finish by looking at that again. So dog does look rather worried, doesn't it? But it's a great Halloween costume there with a dog there. So well done to you. We'll be in touch and we'll organise to get you a bag, get your dog a bag of Vet's Kitchen goodies. So thank you all for entering. Thanks for all your feedback and comments. It's great to hear from you. It makes the show so much better having all that interaction. So we look forward to seeing you same time next week, Wednesday, 1 o'clock here on Vets Clinic Live. See you then. Bye.
Bye now.